Morning Majlis, talking the stories that are shaping headlines. This is Pulse 95.
This is Pulse 95, and a very good morning and welcome on to the Morning Majlis. And now we're going to be talking about the story that not only shaped headlines but also was dominating our social media pages because of that famous slap of Emmanuel Macron. Now, I wanted to gauge a little bit more in terms of why it might have happened and what was going on. Look, from the footage that appears, it's Macron runs to this group of fans slash audience of looking at the bigger picture. It was about 20 people, 15 to 20 people, not many. My initial assessment was he ran to one person and he slapped him. That's when I thought it might have been staged.
It wasn't even a big slap. It was the wimpiest slap I've ever seen him. It was just a slight tap, and Macron just goes up to the guy, grabs his elbow, and just pulls it down, and he's sitting there just waiting for it, and the guy he puts his hands in the air and then just slightly taps him. It was a very weird video to watch because I just got all the different angles, and now you got me thinking because you're telling me, hey, something's a little fishy here.
Yeah.
And now I'm looking at it completely differently. I'm like, maybe he's trying to get votes. There's an upcoming election.
There is an election coming up.
Yeah.
And look, we all knew, but internationally, Emmanuel Macron for taking over the reins of France, and then his love story of his wife was all circulating, and Macron was famous for that. His views have not been very, very popular. His approval rating in France has been at the lowest as well. And so he is on a 6-week political tour de France. And he is, according to the French government and his team, it is taking the pulse of the country as it emerges from the coronavirus crisis. We know that most of the basic rules of COVID-19 has been to avoid shaking hands, maintaining a social distance of 2 meters, right? This man goes into in south of France, goes to a massive event or wherever he was doing, and sees a crowd of people and says, you know what? Let's go in and say hello to them, even though there is basic guidelines that you're not supposed to be doing. Apart from the general security protocol of prime ministers and presidents, this man violates that and says, you know what, I know there's an election coming up. I'm going to go down and say hello to my people or whoever it is. Now, according to the reports that are emerging, the man could be hurt down with macaronia and then delivers a slap to Macron's face. Security men tackled the man in green t-shirt while Macron was ushered away, but Macron returns to the same scene and says, let him go and let him go. 2 people were arrested, according to the police. The slogan the man shouted has been co-opted in the past few years by royalists and people on the far right in France. He was on the visit to the Drôme region to meet restaurateurs and students and talk about returning to normal life after the pandemic. There was this reminded us of the incident of famous George W. Bush when he knew exactly when the shoes are going to be coming and decided to dock them quite well as well.
I don't even know how he managed to do that. Just straight up dodge those. But yeah, I remember that incident at the time. Everybody was talking about it.
And what does that get you is do people talk about it and it's circulated. France's elections are close by and his approval rating hasn't been that great. And looking at the stats at the moment, his approval rating ticked down to 38% last week. Down from 39% that was reported by Politico, and because of the COVID-19 situation and because of the budget deficit in France, which is reported at $268.16 billion as well, he's not been the most popular one at all at the moment. So I don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah, that's the thing. And following the incident, Macron immediately played down the assault. He said the overwhelming majority of the French are interested in real problems. Speaking to newspapers shortly afterwards, he said, let's not let ultra-violent individuals take control of the public debate. They are not worth it. Now, looking at the overall political situation, Marine Le Pen, leader of the far-right Rassemblement National Party, I have to pronounce it the French way, they said they're expected to be their main rival, in fact, in the next year's presidential election. They asked, quote, is there a single person in France who hasn't understood that Emmanuel Macron is taking advantage of his position as president to campaign for regional elections? They said the behavior was unacceptable and to be thoroughly condemned in a democracy. So, yeah, pretty heated political situation there.
They say, the team at Macron would say, oh, we're here to assess the situation of the COVID-19, as the country is emerging out of the COVID-19 crisis. But then the other side of the camp would say, why is it a 6-week-long tour then? You could just go to Paris and speak to some people, but no, why is it a nationwide tour? And when incidents like this happen, you always know that you might get this sympathy vote, and people would say, oh man, did you see that? He was slapped. Oh no, this is going on. So it's gone viral. It's got the international attention, and that's what you need, really, isn't it? When you want to influence a decision on the ballot. So you never know. This is just our little bit of assessment that it might have been staged or facilitated, let's say, to let this situation happen. Because did he expect it? Did he not? Also depends on how intense the slap was as well, you know?
Definitely is. And if anything, Macron is known for relishing those public moments and speaking to the common man on his visits and walkabouts as well with bystanders as he travels around the country. He's known as well for another incident where on a cultural open day, he spoke to a gardener who complained about the lack of work, and Macron said, I could find you a job in a restaurant or a hotel just by crossing the road. So it's just stuff like that where he's got those moments in the public as well. But it's pretty interesting. And look, across the political spectrum, everybody rallied around Macron, denouncing the violence that occurred in that situation.
Exactly. So, well, stay with us on the Morning Majlis. We welcome your thoughts and opinions on the matter. If you've got a different perspective on this, do get involved on the text lines 4215. The Majlis shall return after some more musical entertainment as we continue the focus on developments across the globe as well as regionally. And up next, we talk to you about Liechtenstein. Why is it a place that people want to go, especially UK artists? Stay with us. This is the Morning Majlis on Pulse 95.
This is Pulse 95.
Pulse 95.
It's the Morning Majlis. It's the Morning Majlis.
Good morning and welcome back on to the Morning Majlis. This is the show for discussing the big stories shaping the headlines regionally, globally, as well as locally here in the Emirate of Sharjah. Now, what we're going to be talking about is the story when it comes to events in the United Arab Emirates. We all love to be invited. We all love to be taking part in celebrations and festivities and even attending concerts. And we see a new refreshing vibes, sense it, because now we've been invited to dinners, office gatherings, and the restrictions are slightly eased. But there is a catch with all those restrictions being eased. Only the elite can go, and those elites are those vaccinated.
That's right. And a lot of elite people here in this country. We've got the highest COVID vaccine distribution in the world, in fact, at the UAE. So in line with that, with restrictions easing across the United Arab Emirates, we're seeing the return of events and social gatherings. And from that, now, all attendees must present a COVID-19 negative result issued no more than 48 hours prior to the event, as well as adhering to COVID safety measures, including wearing a mask and social distancing. Now, I haven't had my vaccine shot yet. I've sort of been really kind of scared about it, but I want to take it now. But there's just so much to keep track of. The app, how to get your vaccine shots, what you need to get into an event in the first place, whether you need a PCR or not. And I know you've been talking to event managers and officials from hotels. So what's that like?
Things we need to get a clearer picture, because obviously it all depends on each individual emirate in terms of how strictly they want to enforce it. And then for hotels, they'll read these articles and they see these developments, but they follow the directives and guidelines issued to them by the respective authorities. So we'll be speaking to some of the event organizers and venues here in the United Arab Emirates at this week, and hopefully by next week when we have clearer guidelines. Now, I'm speaking about the situation in Dubai, for example. So I went down to one of the hotels and I wanted to investigate in terms of what's going on, and they clearly said to us that we will check Al Husn app. We want you to bring out your Al Husn app because most of the UAE residents are acquainted with it. The Emirates IDs are linked to the system, so there is no way that you can't access Al Husn app because you're not part of whatever. No, your Emirates ID is linked to it. You will get it will have your details, and you turn up and have to produce a negative PCR test, even if you are vaccinated. At first, the bottom line is you can only attend an event because you're vaccinated. But even if you are, you must do a PCR test not more than 48 hours prior to attending an event. And that's a cause of concern. So I'm sure there's going to be a lot of thoughts in people's minds thinking, why did I get vaccinated in the first place? Well, the reason is because you could still be a carrier even if you are vaccinated. Yes, if you're fully vaccinated, you are one of those who is immune to it, but you could still be one of those who can transport it. So to make sure that a social event is observed properly, this is the rules. Then there's going to be another question that people would throw and say, okay, if I'm vaccinated, if I'm tested negative, why am I still obliged to wear face masks and maintain a social distancing in a ballroom? Well, those are the rules. And if you want to have fun, you want to be part of any sort of celebration, you just got to do what you got to do. And yes, the hotel management and staff do feel a little bit obliged and say, we understand it's a wedding, we understand it's a social event, but that's the case. However, things are different for corporate events.
Yeah, things are indeed different for corporate events as well. And I'm looking at some of the guidelines they've announced so far. I believe corporate events also require vaccination, don't they?
There hasn't been, according to the event organizers, there hasn't been any clear set guidelines, but they follow the same ones. They follow that, okay, we need you to be negative, tested negative. We need you to be vaccinated. So there's a lot of areas, and this is Emirates related. So now we will be speaking to some of the event organizers here in the Emirate of Sharjah. So don't worry too much. We'll get you more of a clarity this week. So do stay tuned to the Morning Majlis, and we will try and speak to Sharjah Tourism as well to get more of an understanding of the situation. For now, it's time for sports headlines as we gear up for another encounter of the United Arab Emirates this weekend. It is against Indonesia, and all of those, by the way, fans attending those football games have to be vaccinated and be carrying a negative PCR test before they can be fans or turn up to watch the games. So rules are rules, guys. Well, for now, let's move on to Aisha Al-Mazmi and her new sports headlines, and we shall return right after that, continuing the discussions here on the Morning Majlis.
Pulse 95.
The Morning Majlis, talking the stories that are shaping headlines. This is Pulse 95.
I got some COVID updates, in fact. What's happening in Bahrain? I was reading about lockdowns and stuff.
You know, we were just talking about these events things here in the United Arab Emirates, and for us it just seemed like everything's back to normal, it's great, we can go to parties, events, gatherings, but then we realized not so far away from us, Bahrain is still in a bit of a lockdown situation and will remain so until the end of this month. That raises sort of eyebrows, isn't it?
It really does, especially given how strict this lockdown is. They're going to close cinemas, gyms, swimming pools, fitness studios, and cafes as well, as part of a move here to try and keep the country safe as well. Now, in Bahrain, the country's experiencing a rise in infected cases and deaths. It has recorded 251,000 infections and 1,119 deaths since the start of the pandemic. Health authorities are accelerating the vaccination drive. The country has begun inoculating residents and citizens with the Sinopharm shot, has introduced other vaccines as well, and even said they'd expand this to people ages 12 to 17 as well.
Yeah, look, in the United Arab Emirates, we're very proud of the vaccination rates being above 85% for those eligible or those who are also in the high-risk category. But in Bahrain, even though it's a very small population compared to the UAE, at least half of them have been immunized. But then their goals is to achieve a higher vaccination rates by having this bit of a national lockdown so that they can complete their drives accordingly. But then, look, we take things for granted here. I mean, we're so used to things open in the United Arab Emirates that we completely forget what it is like in other parts of the globe. And Bahrain is not very far from us at all.
Not at all. And I think that's something that's definitely concerning as well, just how close it is and the way it surges up, all these mutants cropping up every now and then. But I think the hallmark of a country that's had a grip on COVID-19 is the vaccinations. And if a lot of people are getting those, then I can't imagine we would get into that situation. So a lot of optimism about the numbers coming out of the country. But around the world, yes, countries are still reeling. Even Maldives is extending anti-COVID restrictions by a week. Maldives being a popular holiday destination for us here.
Definitely. I mean, the only thing that everyone knew about it became like a second home for us because literally everyone you knew was going to Maldives, and then you'd always assume, if everyone's going to Maldives. In some thoughts saying, it doesn't care about COVID, they're just caring about the tourism, people come back. But then you don't realize that they've had lots of restrictions anyway. And President Ibrahim Saleh said that the curfew between 4 p.m. and 8 a.m. local time and the ban on traveling outdoors without a police permit will be extended by another week to reduce the country's infection rate, according to a quote by Xinhua News Agency. And they will be reviewing the situation. So despite them being open to the world for travel and holidays, they too are continuing with their focus on curbing the COVID-19.
Yeah, they definitely are. And looking around the world as well, we've got the United Kingdom. Now, they are planning to lift the restrictions of COVID on the 21st this month. But according to the health secretary, he recently said the government is still open to delaying that lifting of restrictions as well, especially with the Delta variant, which was first seen in India, now cropping up in the United Kingdom and reportedly more transmissible as well. So even getting out of those lockdowns is a challenge in and of itself.
And this raises that vibe that we're getting on Instagram. You know, there's so many websites and so many social media posts being shared saying, first flight to the UK has been taken off. First flight here. 19 new destinations added to the list. US opens to 100 countries for arrivals. And then you raise this question mark saying, if other countries are going into restrictions and having this, why are you traveling in the first place?
Yeah.
And this is going to, and there's been a lot of offers. Literally, my Gmail got flooded by these travel agents and these factories for the holidays, sending you emails saying, great deal, fly here. Great, but what if I go abroad and get stuck? What am I going to do? And, it's still there, guys. That concern is still out there to say, if I do plan on getting a holiday or go away for a while, or even couple of days, how quickly the rules change is something that still worries me and still would affect our sentiments for willing to travel. Because to be honest, guys, there's so many people who are still stranded in India, UAE residents, worried about their jobs, worried about their well-being, and then for us, we think we should think about them as well, because they can't come back here. Why should we be deciding to put ourselves at risk and decide, okay, let's go on a holiday? It's still going to be a bit of a concern, a bit of a debate. So we're appreciating all your thoughts coming in. So do text us on 4215. What do you feel about the world of travel? Are you still thinking of ruling it out as a potential option?
That's right. Text us at 4215. Join the conversation and stay tuned to Pulse 95 because we've got more discussions lined up on the program this morning. Up next, we'll talk about a virtual AI forum taking place here in the Emirate of Sharjah by the Sharjah SHS. So stay tuned for that and much more. Here's Love You Anymore by Michael Bublé.
This is Pulse 95.
Pulse 95.
It's the Morning Majlis.
It's the Morning Majlis.
Well, welcome back onto the Morning Majlis. We are going to be concluding our show now. There's been so much that we've talked about this morning, and would like to conclude our discussions with a quick roundup of things happening. There is the big announcement in the nation's capital, Abu Dhabi, for the world of arts and culture, but the other form of entertainment for many people is the Euro 2020 that is kicking off this weekend. And I did receive a lot of complaints, especially from my own brother, saying, why is our network provider charging us an extortionate amount to watch it at home? I was like, well, there's one way that we can watch it for free. And that is obviously you go to the dining outlets and eateries across the country where you spend almost the same amount as a subscription fee if you look at it overall. But in Sharjah, Al Jada is offering a free drive-in cinema to catch all of the Euro 2021 action. You can go down to Al Jada. 11 p.m. is the first game, Turkey versus Italy. Second game is on Saturday, Denmark versus Finland. That's at 8 p.m. But Al Jada is going to be a great place to go down and watch it for free.
Yeah, that's actually pretty cool. It's really unusual, in fact, that they're doing it in a kind of a drive-in format. I think that's really, really cool and interesting. I've seen some other examples of like interesting ways they're going to be showcasing the games. They got there's a place called the Football Village in the neighboring emirate where people are swimming. Apparently, they could see the game.
Swimming pool.
Yeah, that's a kind of a unique way to do it as well. So yeah, I mean,
it'll be funny at 8 p.m. and 11 p.m. to be in the pool and watch the game. There's one way of beating the humidity for sure. But guys, let us know if you've got any exciting venues here in the Emirate of Sharjah that you would suggest and recommend for us to go down and catch the encounter. I'm pretty sure all those restaurants down the Jamal Abdel Nasser streets for the they're going to be packed because there'll be a lot of people willing to watch the games. Al Majaz waterfront could be a cool place to catch the games live. But speaking of the nation's capital, Abu Dhabi, the Pakistan Super League also kicks off. And it kicks off tonight, in fact. So that's going to be interesting to see. The world of cricket is returning, football is returning, and we're all seeing a wave of optimism across the country. Yeah, absolutely. Just a return to normalcy across the board. A lot of people gearing up for those major sports events as well. And the Euro 2020, I mean, that's as ambitious as it gets. Pretty cool that they're keeping the 2020 in the name. And we're looking forward to kickoff, which I think is going to be taking place on Friday this weekend. Yes, it is. And on Friday, it is going to be Turkey versus Italy that is going to take place for the Euro 2021. Oh, wow. So that's going to be an encounter that is going to be worth watching and catching as well. For guys, for now, the Majlis shall take a longer breather. We'll be back again tomorrow morning, bright and early, keeping you posted about the world for sure. And if you'd like to get involved, you can text us on 4215 if there's any particular topic that you'd like us to analyze, as we did with the Emmanuel Macron slapping incident. Oh, which will be available on our social media platforms as well. But for now, it's going to be goodbye for us.
That's right. We'll be back tomorrow at 7 a.m. And if you missed any of our discussions, head over to our Spotify, SoundCloud, or Apple podcast. Just type Morning Majlis in the search bar. And until we see you next time, stay tuned to Pulse 95.
If you liked this episode of The Morning Majlis, drop a like and subscribe.
95.
Be sure to follow us on Instagram for all our daily updates and top stories.
Pulse.